Chapter 27. The Twits are turned upside down. "What's this?" gasped Mr. Twit as they entered the living room. "What's happened?" screamed Mrs. Twit. They stood in the middle of the room looking up. All of the furniture, the big table, the chairs, the sofa, the lamps, the little side tables, the cabinet with the bottles of beer in it, the ornaments, the electric fire, the carpet, everything was stuck upside down to the ceiling. The pictures were upside down on the walls, and the floor where they were standing on was absolutely bare. What's more, it had been painted white to look like the ceiling. "Look!" cried Mrs. Twit. "That's the floor! The floor's up there! This is the ceiling! We're standing on the ceiling! We're upside down!" shouted Mr. Twit. We must be upside down! We're standing on the ceiling, looking up at the floor. "Help! Help!" screamed Mrs. Twit. "Help! Help! Help! I'm beginning to feel so giddy." So am I, said Mr. Twit. "I don't like this one little bit." We're upside down and all the blood is going to my head," screamed Mrs. Twit. "If we don't do something quickly, I shall die. I know I will." "I've got it," said Mr. Twit. "I know what we'll do. We'll stand on our heads and then everything will be the right way up." So they stood on their heads. And, of course, the moment the tops of their heads touched the floor, that sticky glue that the ravens had brushed on just a few moments beforehand did its job. They were stuck. They were pinned down, cemented, glued, fixed to the floorboards. Through a crack in the doorway, the monkeys watched. They jumped right outside their cage the minute the Twits had gone inside, and the roly-poly bird watched. And all the other birds flew in and out to catch a glimpse of this extraordinary sight. Chapter 28. The Monkeys Escape. That evening, Mugglewump and his family went up to the big woods on the top of the hill and into the tallest tree of all. They built a marvellous treehouse. All of the birds, especially the big ones, the crows, the rooks and the magpies, made their nests around the treehouse so that nobody could see it from the ground. "You can't stay up here forever," Roly-Poly Bird said. "Why not?" asked Mugglewump. "It's a lovely place." "Just you wait until the winter comes," said the Roly-Poly Bird. "Monkeys don't like cold weather, do they?" "They most certainly don't," Mugglewump cried. "Are the winters so very cold here?" "Oh, it's all snow and ice," said the Roly-Poly Bird. "Sometimes it's so cold that when a bird wakes up in the morning, its feet are frozen to the branch that he's been roosting on." "Oh, then what are we going to do?" said Mugglewump. "My family will all be deep freezed." "No, they won't," said the Roly-Poly Bird, "because when the first leaves start falling from the trees in the autumn, you can simply fly home to Africa with me." "Don't be ridiculous," Mugglewump said. "Monkeys can't fly." "You can sit on my back," said the Roly-Poly Bird. "I shall take you one at a time. You shall travel by Roly-Poly Superjet, and it won't cost you a penny." Chapter 29. The Twits Get the Shrinks. Down here in that horrid house, Mr. and Mrs. Twit are still stuck upside down to the floor of the living room. "It's all your fault," yelled Mr. Twit, thrashing his legs around in the air. "You're the one, you ugly old cow, who went hopping around and shouting, 'We're upside down! We're upside down!' And you're the one who said to stand on your heads so we'd be the right way up," screamed Mrs. Twit. "You whiskery old warthog! Now we'll never get free. We'll be stuck here forever." "You may be stuck here forever," shouted Mr. Twit, "but not me. I'm going to get away." Mr. Twit wriggled and squirmed, and he squiggled and wormed, and he twisted and he turned, and he choggled and he churned. But the sticky glue held him tight to the floor, just as tightly as it had once held those poor birds to the big dead tree. He was still upside down as ever, standing on his head. But you see, heads are not made to be stood upon. If you stand on your head for a very long time, a horrid thing happens. And this is where Mr. Twit got his biggest shock of all. With so much weight from up above, his head began to get squished into his body. Quite soon it had disappeared completely, out of sight into the fatty folds of his flabby neck. "I'm shrinking!" burbled Mr. Twit. "So am I!" cried Mrs. Twit. "Help me! Save me! Call a doctor!" yelled Mr. Twit. "I'm getting the dreaded shrinks." So he was. Mrs. Twit was getting the dreaded shrinks too. And this time it wasn't fake. It was the real thing. Their heads shrank into their necks. And then their necks began shrinking into their bodies. Then their bodies began shrinking into their legs. And their legs began shrinking into their feet. 1 week later, on a nice sunny afternoon, a man called Fred came round to read the gas meter. When nobody answered the door, Fred peeped into the house, and there he saw, on the floor of the living room, 2 bundles of old clothes, 2 pairs of shoes, and a walking stick. There was nothing else left in the world of Mr. and Mrs. Twit. And everyone, including Fred, shouted, "Hooray!" The end.